When setting up a scene for rendering, sometimes it's really helpful to use a feature called ActiveShade. And that is an interactive production renderer in which you can make changes to your scene and get instant feedback as to what your final production render will look like. Let's load the ActiveShade into the perspective view here. Click on the viewport name or panel name and go to Extended Viewports, ActiveShade. It'll take a moment to refresh, and now you'll see the same result in that window that you would get if you did a production rendering. It just takes whatever the current production renderer is and then drops it into that view. Now we can make changes to our scene, such as lighting, materials, and even the positions of objects, and this will re-render instantly. We don't have to keep clicking on the render button. I'll go over to my top view and select that sun positioner or compass rose. Go into the Modify panel and change up, for example, the time. It's 10 a.m. right now in Portland on January 1st, 2017. Let's go to 9 a.m. and boom, the sun's in a different place and the ART renderer refreshes here in the ActiveShade panel. I can go to 8 a.m., 7 a.m., and at 6 a.m., it's still dark out. It's still night, actually. Cool. I'll bring this back up to 10 a.m. When you're done with the ActiveShade window, you can close it. Just right-click in the view and choose Close. Also, optionally, if you prefer, you can have ActiveShade in a floating window. To do that, you'll go into the Render Setup dialog, and you've got the Target pull down here. What this does is determine what happens when you click the Render button. By default, it's going to open up the Production Rendering Rendered Frame window, as if you're going to save to disk. From that Target pull down, we can choose ActiveShade mode. And then when we click the Render button, the Art Renderer will be invoked and it will be interactive with our scene. One little gotcha to pay attention to here is that if you change the viewport, then ART will render that view. To prevent that happening and to keep focus on the perspective view, we can go ahead and click on this padlock, and now the rendered frame window will be locked to the perspective view. Cool. So when I click Render, we get a 640 by 480 frame that is an interactive ART rendering. We've got 640 by 480 here in our render size. And once again, we can go ahead and change any of those parameters. I can go into my sun positioner parameters and change up the time of day. I could change materials or really anything about my scene, and it will update instantly here in this ActiveShade window. Very cool. That's a huge time saver. When I'm done, I can close that window and then probably go back into the Render Setup dialog and switch the target back to production rendering mode. That's how ActiveShade can save us a lot of time when setting up the lighting and rendering for a scene.